The advantage of seeing the of leveraging the external object is that first, we do not need to store the data inside Salesforce, and we can virtualize the data. And even we can do the reporting on that data and create the list views as well, which unfortunately is not available on Lightning Web Component. However, external object come with a limit of 20,000 callouts per hour limit. So as far as we are within this limit, this is the right pattern for the data virtualization.
But again, okay, it's good about the governor limit, but still, what is the advantage of external object? Why, like I said, why I just not go and use a Lightning Web Component and do
Correct.
the request and reply pattern? What am I getting out
Because
of?
because it's a native declarative solution from Salesforce.
Okay, exactly. That what exactly I wanted to hear. Declarative point and click based integration, and second is the look and feel from the user point of view. People, it's seamless experience, right? It's
Correct.
not like account and contact standard objects in the custom object. They are seeing some different UI, and then external objects suddenly the different UI. So that is an advantage.
Correct.
Another advantage that you could talk about direct and indirect relationship, right? External objects can be related.
With the standard custom objects, yeah, at the child
Now,
or parent.
so coming back to your answer, you talk about restriction rule. What are the restriction rules?
Salesforce restriction rules basically apply on the data whose access is already given to a given set of users, and then we want to apply certain filters and want to restrict that data's visibility to a specific set of users. So we can apply at an object level. So for example, if Peter is a user who can, from the OWT and from the sharing rules perspective, the user can, Peter can see 1,000 records, but out of those 1,000, we only want him to see the 100 records out of which the city is California. So restriction rule can help us achieving that.
Any limitations of external rule?
External
Sorry, any limitation
restriction
restriction?
rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, restriction rules, we can have only one restriction rule per object.
Okay. You did talk about 20K limit. Can you explain a little bit more on that limit?
Sure. So whenever any kind of viewing or reporting call happens, whenever a user is trying to see either a list view or try to load a report, it is count as one OData call out. Now, for example, in the list view, we are having 200 records which can be loaded at once. Same thing with the report as well. Every time we load that page, a new call will be made and 200 records will be fetched. So that will keep counting against this 20,000 OData limit. So that's a viewing, editing, reporting.
And is that a hard limit or soft limit?
I'm not sure about this.
Okay. This is a soft limit, Bhaskar, right? We can increase this limit if needed by contacting the Salesforce support, but there is one limit which is a hard limit.
1
That
million.
limit
Okay.
is 100,000 external records getting created per hour, which is a very important one. Normally, we miss that one because what Salesforce platform does is every external record get unique external ID. Internally, Salesforce operates that. So
Mhm.
if the speed of record creation in external system is more than 100,000 per hour, there is a limit. Salesforce takes a time to catch up and internally use that one. Okay.
Okay.
So
Understood.
if I were a judge, and when I talk about, tell me about external object and everything, all the good stuff that you did, but your answer should have a good information density. Okay. So, for example, talk about the most important is a declarative way of declaration, a declarative way of integration, right? Of course,
Integration.
it is a lot more happens in the middleware side, which you don't need to worry about from the Salesforce admin or architect point of view, right?
Correct.
So make sure you talk about that. Make sure you talk about the user experience, right? Uh, 20,000, yes, it's a good to say. Make sure that you mention that limit. Okay, 100,000, not a lot of people know, but yeah, it's good to keep in your back of mind. Okay,
Okay.
uh, that is one of the advantage of request and reply versus the external object because you don't need to worry about the Lightning Web Component or anything. Okay,
Correct.
remember breadcrumbs. When you answered me, you give me some breadcrumbs that I can answer you back. You, for example, restriction rule, you mentioned good, right? But you need to make sure you really know the right uh, limitations and the capabilities of the restriction rules. Okay.
Yeah.
Second question. Okay, I will stay a little bit on integration patterns itself. Tell me, why would someone use a platform event instead of outbound messages?
Correct. So, however, from a Salesforce perspective, both are declarative way of doing an integration in a which supplements the fire and forget, which incorporates the fire and forget pattern. Platform events are considered as more optimal because they can be made encrypted at rest by utilizing the Shield platform encryption add-on, which unfortunately outbound messages cannot be. Outbound messages comes with an automated retry mechanism, but cannot have but we cannot have any right sequence defined in it. However, platform event, we can define the sequence, and also the platform event um, uh, have the ability of staying back in the event bus for up to 72 hours, which can be fetched upon which upon failure can be replayed using the replay ID.
Okay. Help me understand how the sequence is maintained. You mentioned something about sequence.
Right. So whenever a new platform event is getting created, Salesforce automatically attaches a replay ID with every single record. And when the platform event is being subscribed by MuleSoft and being utilized, if any error occurs, it will come back and fetch the last replay ID of the platform event which was consumed, and then after that it will pick the next one.
Do you know the format of the replay ID? Is it a numeric or alphanumeric?
It is numeric.
Numeric. And is it a sequential?
No, it is not.
Okay. So you did mention that sequence can be maintained, but then replay ID is not sequential. Help me understand this part.
Okay. I need to get back to you on this.
Now, so your answer is right, Bhaskar. Okay. You're right. Sequence is not maintained, but still you can sort it. That
Yeah,
sort.
I was not that sorting. I was not able to recall, right, where to do that.
Good. What, as a judge, I would like to hear more about you from outbound message versus platform event is really platform event is loose coupled payload. Okay. Using configuration anytime you can modify, right? Platform event, it's a JSON eventually, and the the way and the nature of the JSON is if the client has a code to look for the JSON data, if you're sending more JSON data, client would not fail. Compared to outbound message, it's a contract first, right? It's a SOAP based. Okay.
It's a based.
And that is also on the old infrastructure, it's not scalable. And that is the reason that's the most important factor. First of all, it's a contract based. And very well, like 72 hour, once the outbound message somehow is delivered, right, you cannot replay the outbound message back, unlike in platform
Correct.
event, you already mentioned 72 hours. Okay, good.
There is a challenge in the platform event, right? A platform event, I think the maximum payload size can be 1 MB, if I'm right. Uh,
Platform event, yeah, platform event is never supposed to be used for the whole integration, okay, and sending the whole payload. Most of the time the platform event purpose is, yes, subscriber know that okay, something happened in the system. If subscriber needs
then
more
yeah,
data, they have to come back.
come
That's the
back. Right.
nature. Okay.
Fair enough.
Because it's a messaging queue, right? The messages are there.
Right.
One of the disadvantage of the platform event though, right, from the practical, I have used the platform event in multiple projects. The biggest challenge is see how the Salesforce governor limits are normally mentioned that hey, use XYZ governor limit in 24 hour, right? Platform event, whatever the limit you are using, there is no very clear out of the box way to know that okay, someone generated, let's say, 50,000 platform event and then 50,000 is delivered. Who is the subscriber to delivered? What time it was delivered? Those kind of the information matrix is still not available. The only way to get those information is to contact Salesforce support. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
There is
So
even
basically, like,
Mhm.
so for example, the delivery limit and the creation limit is like 250K and 150. We are not able to identify that how many we have used out of it. That's the point, right?
You will able to know that you are going to hit, and also the limit is not. So let's say delivery limit is 50,000 per 24 hour.
Mhm.
It is possible that Salesforce is able to deliver 51,000, right? But exactly if you want to know, hey, where is my bottleneck? So event log is there, right? Salesforce event log objects are there, but these are not very useful. Okay. The only way for you to know that, okay, which subscriber using most of my platform and governor limit in all those analytics. And see, that is the fundamental, like in AWS, like if you use a Kafka or something, right? There is a very clear analytics view saying that, hey, how many generated, how many subscribed, and then also how many subscriber are concurrently using. Those kind of the information is not yet there. You can get it if you contact Salesforce support.
Okay. And
Okay.
in my answer, I mentioned about the considering the encryption, right, which is only possible in platform event. Was it worth mentioning about when we talk about the comparison with outbound messages?
If your scenario is again, I don't know what kind of the scenario you're going to get, but read the scenario carefully. If they talk about compliance, healthcare industry, finance industry, and they say that, okay, uh, integration or let's say encryption is very important for them, yes, it's worth mentioning, right? But then you need to really, there are still limitations on encryption, right? So you really need to know the edge. See, anything that is coming out of your uh, any word that you're spitting there in front of judges, right? Make sure if you're giving the breadcrumbs to the judges, see, they can feel immediately that how much you know, how much you don't, right? So just make sure you have a full command on those topics. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about data migration. Okay, so
Okay.
here's the scenario. Okay, there existing Salesforce instance, right? And let's assume that's very well maintained, there is no technical debt or anything, and new business group came back and they are using, let's assume, like Siebel or Dynamics, and they want to implement Salesforce. And let's assume that you decided that there is a brownfield implementation. Instead of creating new Salesforce instance, you will reuse existing. Help me understand what are the challenges that you're going to face in terms of the data migration for the existing Salesforce instance.
So I'm assuming that the data migration requirement is that we wanted to migrate all the data from the Siebel CRM to Salesforce,
Mhm.
right? And do we also shall we also consider in the scenario that we have duplicates in both of these systems?
Exactly, you can.
Okay.
See,
All right.
what I mentioned is there is no technical depth. So in terms of coding, functionality, right? Metadata is not a problem. But then again, my question is more on the data side. So as an architect, when you go on that project, right? What are the top three and four things that you would look after when you plan data migration?
Correct. So the very first thing I would look after is around the format of the data. Basically, like whether it's existing into that what data model it is currently following in the source system, whether the parent-child relationships are existing or not, and if yes, are they aligned with the processes what we are implementing in Salesforce or what we want them to be implemented into Salesforce. Second thing I would think about is around the data volumes, so that how much the data volumes are. Since Siebel has acted as an on-prem system, it is having the capability of having tens of millions of records, which Salesforce is not made for primarily. So we also need to consider that what data is hot cold and what data is actually needed to be migrated. Third point I will think about is I will consider is the duplication of the data. If the if Salesforce and Siebel, both of the systems are having the duplicates, then we need to extract the data from both of these systems in our raw staging database and identify the right criteria by talking with the business and do the deduplication of platform, and then only we should be migrating the data. Fourth thing is whether we are going to have Siebel entirely replaced by Salesforce or it is still going to keep that cold data in it. And is the business accepting to have the cold data migrated to the electronic data warehouse? So these are the 4 or 5 key things I would consider. May I know like which area you would like me to further dig into?
You mentioned electronic data warehouse. What is that?
Electronic data warehouse is basically it's a EDW. We call it in the short form, right? It's
Electronic
nothing other
enterprise.
than, sorry.
You meant enterprise data warehouse, or you meant electronic data
Oh,
warehouse?
sorry. I'm sorry. I wanted to say, and sorry, I was just out of my head. So that's the enterprise data warehouse, where the data will be maintained in the raw format, in the base
Uh,
64 format, and we can have large data volumes kept in there.
you mentioned about cold data, right? How would you handle? So yes, there is a cold data. Civil CRM is completely going to be decommissioned. How would you handle that part?
Okay, my assumption here is that this cold data is not going to be utilized by the active users inside Salesforce. So I would be moving the entire cold data into EDW directly, but we will ensure that we are maintaining their external IDs inside Salesforce, so that as an on-demand basis, if we need to virtualize that data by means of either external objects or by using any Lightning queries, Lightning Web Component or any queries, we should be able to do that.
You mentioned external ID you will keep in Salesforce. Help me understand how that would work.
Okay, so I meant it other way around. So once we will be having the Salesforce records created inside, once we'll be having the so for example, the data which is the cold data, and say it is the child objects like the completed cases and the orders. We need to maintain that against what orders and against what opportunities, against what contacts they are associated to. Once the parent accounts, contacts, or opportunities were created inside Salesforce, we want to maintain this Salesforce's ID into that into the records of the cold data as a custom field, so that we will be able to chase them back. That okay, if these are the 10 million cases inside the EDW, against what all accounts they were related to. So from Salesforce IDs, we will be able to fetch that. So
And
this
from
is the foreign
Salesforce,
ID,
which record ID?
Salesforce ID,
Which object ID? Sorry,
account ID,
account ID.
account
Okay.
account ID and contact ID in case of cases. Same way for in case of order line items, the order ID. In case of
Yeah.
orders, the opportunity and quote ID.
So I think, yeah, I your answer is okay, okay. But as you can see, right, you spend a lot of time on answering the questions. So you
Yes,
really need to kind of like the word I used to say, information density, right? Speak less but speak powerful, right? Definitely the data quality very good, right? What again, every judges has a different point of view, but personally, what I would like to hear from you, see, the moment you use a brownfield, you don't have a flexibility of having because there are user exists. You don't have flexibility
correct,
for unlimited downtime. So if
correct,
it's greenfield implementation, you can load data like 1 month in advance, 2 week in advance. Nobody cares. It's a dark deployment, dark data migration. Dark data migration would not happen in brownfield. That is the most important thing. Second, yes, data quality is an issue, but again, even though if there is a no technical depth, but the object that the new users are going to use, the most common objects, account, contact, opportunities, right? What are the impact of this data on those objects? How would you make sure, and that's where the security lens comes into the picture, that how would you make sure that existing users are not able to see the data that we are migrating for the new users, right? So you have to have a security lens there. Uh, Existing integrations, right? Exactly same way. In the greenfield implementation, you literally no need to worry about, hey, if I start loading the data and there is an existing integration and account and contact, they will start firing, right? That problem is not there. But in brownfield, there might be that problem, right? So you really need to understand, do you have a proper toggling in place for the integrations, right? Can you disable the integration, right? So security, integration, and existing solution, right? Those are going to be some impact here.
correct,
Another thing, if you observe, right, in the last 3, 4 sections, my most of the questions are questions on your answers.
correct,
You say something and then I ask you, hey, explain me again, right? So make sure whatever you are saying, you really understand those words. Okay, be a little bit mindful, like EDW. It's a personally, I was feeling, oh, is there a new concept of electronic data warehouse? But then the moment you say EDW, I understand, okay, you meant to
uh,
say something else, right? That
yeah,
kind of a misunderstanding can happen. Okay.
correct, yeah.
Okay, advanced multi-currency. First of all, right? What is advanced multi-currency and what object does it support?
Advanced multi-currency. So advanced multi-currency is basically helps in achieving the dated exchange rates for the opportunities which are closed, and it supports the opportunity object.
Any other object it supports? Like
It can
order?
be not I'm aware of.
Okay. So see, this is very deep question. Okay, and this question is going to be very helpful in solutioning, right? Normally, what I see candidates, they use a custom object. Hey, I am going to use a custom object for selling purpose or something. But understand here, right? Advanced multi-currency is such a powerful topic, and the only object that supports is opportunity on the basis of
Correct.
closed date, right?
Correct. Close
So
it. Yeah.
before going on custom or any using some case object or something, right? Keep that mind, right?
Yeah.
Anything around forecasting, right? If your advanced multi-currency is see anywhere the requirement is multi-currency. I don't think multi-currency is going to work without advanced multi. I mean, you don't want to keep a date 2 year old of the exchange, right? At least you keep changing the date, right? You need that kind of the capability. So keep that in mind. But I like your answer, pretty good. So web to lead, what would happen if the web to lead solution, let's say, gets, let's say, 1000 requests per day? What would happen to the remaining 500 records?
They will not be created inside Salesforce. However, the there will be a default lead owner who will start receiving the emails that a lead was created.
Start getting that lead. So would that 500 record which came within 24 hours, so remaining 500 which is over the limit, what would happen to those records?
Those records will not get created. They will go into a queue, and for every single record, the determined person will get 500 emails. So 500 leads will be created inside Salesforce, and 500 emails for the remaining leads will be sent to the specified user.
So those leads are lost or those leads would get created after some time?
Those leads will be lost because this 24 hour duration, it is not a rolling limit. So those leads will be lost, and unfortunately the we will have to create those leads manually into Salesforce.
Check again, Bhaskar on web to lead. As per my knowledge, right? Yeah, queue is right, but when the limit is clear, right, the remaining pending leads does gets created. There is a limit of 50,000, which is shared between lead and case both. Okay.
Okay, so it is a rolling limit. uh, okay, I will double check on that.
Double check. Okay, if the 50,000 limit is hit, shared limit between case, and then yeah, they will get a rejected email, and that part is correct. That for each lead which is hitting the limit, yes, default lead owner would get an email saying that hey, you're over the
Yeah,
limit or something, right? But those
correct.
leads are not lost. Okay.
Okay.
Now, what would happen when the Salesforce server goes down in the same scenario, right? So sometimes it happens at the big release in the Salesforce server is like on and off for the half an hour, 1 hour, right? Now, during that maintenance period, if the lead gets created, what would happen?
First time I'm hearing this. Unfortunately, I do not know, but I will understand that again. They will go into that queue, and once the Salesforce server will be back, they get created inside Salesforce.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an answer. It's the same queue, right? When the Salesforce server goes down, right, those are the two different infrastructure. And Salesforce documentation very clearly mentions that. Okay.
So I should have directly answered rather than saying that I don't know, but I will try.
No, no, I think see one thing, right? In a CTA exam, it's better to be upfront what you know, what you don't know. Okay. Uh, don't bluff. If you
Okay.
don't know, yeah, it's good. I mean, I like your answer. Okay. Rather, you could have said, hey, rather I would attempt that Salesforce would use the same queue, right? And it will retain it. And when the Salesforce server is up, right, they will process it. But again, I have to go back and I have to check. Do not bluff.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Data migration. Tell me about, right, what is audit fields and can you migrate audit fields in data migration?
Sure thing. So Salesforce out of the box provides a set of fields which can help in identifying that who the user that who has created the record when the record was created. So basically a set of fields like created by created date time, modified by modified date time, and the default owner. These are the fields which are considered as the Salesforce audit fields. Salesforce do not allow these fields to be modified. However, during the first time migration, a permission set can be assigned which allow the data migration user to set this audit field the very first time. Does this answer your question?
Can the audit field be migrated using upsert operation?
No, they cannot be. We need to delete the records if we want to update them, and then we need to reinsert that records if that's the requirement.
Indirectly, you're saying it is only possible in the insert calls.
That is correct.
Okay. If there is a requirement that they want, so let's say the Siebel CRM scenario, they want to retain field history information. Can you create a field history information in the data migration? If yes, how?
So considering the Salesforce native solution, it is not possible to have the field history created because users cannot directly access that object. However, in a custom object and the custom, we can have that data replicated and stored.
Yeah, right. Salesforce does not support history migration. If it is needed, yes, you can always go with the custom object or some other solution. Yeah. I will say don't use the word custom object. You can rather have one more layer saying that if the volume of the history records are not huge, go with the custom object. Otherwise, go with the data virtualization pattern, okay, which is
Okay,
like external object or request and reply, anything.
fair enough.
See, one fundamental in Salesforce ecosystem, okay, copy versus reference, right? If Salesforce is not the source of truth of the record, it doesn't make sense to bring or copy the data unnecessarily in the Salesforce. So data virtualization integration pattern is always better there.
Got it.
Okay. How would you migrate or walk me through the sequence of the data migration to migrate converted lead records?
Sure thing. So, considering that it's a greenfield implementation, I would first insert the users, my internal users who are going to be the owners. That's my assumption that we do not have partner leads, partner owners over here. And then after that, I will be inserting my accounts, contacts, opportunities, and then I will be inserting my leads because once the lead is converted, it stores the converted account ID, converted contact ID, and converted opportunity ID.
Good. Good. I like answer. Next question is what are the steps to migrate files in Salesforce?
Sure. Assumption here is that the file size is manageable inside Salesforce and what the platform is providing to us. I'm recommending to utilize Salesforce files. In order to migrate the files into Salesforce, I would again use the ETL for the files migration. I will be having the scripts which will convert the files into binary format and the file will be moved into the content document version and content document link object, which in the backend will create the content document object and associate it with the relevant parent ID.
How the content document is associated with the parent ID?
So the content document link will be associated with the parent ID. The
Okay.
content document will be associated with the content document link.
Would you create content version separately and content document separately, or what is the behavior there?
Content document version and content document link, these are the two separately created objects. Content document will be created automatically.
Okay. You mentioned ETL in your answer. Help me understand what is the difference between ETL and ASB and which one you would choose over other?
As per my provided landscape, both are acting as a middleware and contact and connected with Salesforce using the JOT secured flow and supports MTLS as well. ETL I would use for the three major operations. That is for the any batch data synchronization, pattern integrations, the initial data migration, and for my archival requirements. The ESB, on the other hand, will be used for most business-oriented data transformations and integrations. And just to avoid the point-to-point integration, it is also having the capability of doing the protocol conversions and have the request and reply, sorry, protocol conversion, and have uh, the retry mechanism and error logging mechanisms in place. ETL will be used for the large data volumes. However, ESB will be used for the transactional data for the real time and near real time integrations.
Two question, right? Give me some example of protocol conversion. And second, ETL, are you saying that ETL cannot do the protocol conversion?
ETL can do the from technical perspective, yes. However, it's a USP, and or the ETL's right usage is to have the data migration and the batch data synchronization patterns implemented, and not
Give me
for the
example
transactional
of
data.
protocol conversion.
So protocol conversion. So for example, if we are having an ERP system which only supports the SOAP API, and as per my recommendation, I'm recommending event-driven architecture. For us, from a Salesforce platform event perspective, I'm generating a Salesforce platform event on a order creation, say in Salesforce, and I want that order to be created in Salesforce. So ESB can act as a subscriber to the Salesforce event bus, and will be able to communicate with the ESP, with the ERP system, with the SOAP, using the SOAP APIs.
So can't ETL subscribe to the event bus? Is it possible or not?
Technically, it is possible.
So then why, so why part I'm still not getting? If the ETL can still subscribe to the platform event bus, ETL can still do the protocol conversion. How are you deciding that ESB or ETL? What is the advantage you are getting?
I think okay. I don't know the exact, like, what the thin line difference which I have missed. Um, but ETL is for the large data volumes, right? And that is and ESB is for the low data volume, which is a mission critical and the business on which I'm driving my business. ETL's core purpose is not for that. So that's my understanding. But help me identify, like, what the thin line which I'm missing.
See, you're almost there, right? So first of all, right, in the market right now, ATL and ESB line is getting thinner and thinner day by day, right? Whatever
Correct.
ATL can do, ESB can do. But
Correct.
here is what I would say. Okay, first of all, right, ETL is, you're right, is built for processing the large data volume, right? Their timeout limit is pretty high. Okay, compared to ESB, they have very short time frame to process anything. ESB is the most important difference is ESB are mostly on the DMZ layer. What that mean is any cloud system like Salesforce can connect to ESB and inform ESB like request and reply pattern or something. That ETL is
Right.
mostly on the on-premise. Okay.
Okay.
So I know that you use the word business integration. Almost every integration is business integration, right? You are building a system for business. So I'm really not very satisfied with the word business integration, but rather real-time and non-real-time real-time and near real-time integrations are ESB. Okay.
Okay.
These are short integrations, right? And request and reply, those kind of the pattern, because those are the DMZ. Can ETL be DMZ? Yes, it can be. Nobody is stopping, but why to open the security issues again, right? Because if ETL is mostly like batch kind of integration, large data volume kind of integration, so I think I will say that is the most important aspect. Real time, DMZ, ETL is behind the firewall, on premise, built for the large data volume. There are, for example, MuleSoft is officially ESB, but MuleSoft can literally be used in ETL as well,
Exactly.
completely on premise.
Yeah,
Okay.
because MuleSoft even offers both versions, right? It can be on-prem, it can be on cloud as well.
Like I said, the line is getting thinner. If you
Yeah.
want to use system like MuleSoft as an ETL, you really need to have a high availability. You need to have a lot of cores running at the same time in ETL side, right? I personally still would not use MuleSoft as an ETL. I would rather use like industry solution that is used for ETL, like Informatica, Power Center, or something. right? But again, that's the most important difference is really the DMZ part and real time, near real time integration where the cloud can go and talk to the ESB solution. And ETL is more like a pull. ETL will make a call out to the Salesforce or some any cloud system and it can get protocol conversion. I don't think you should mention that because whatever the ESB can do, literally ETL can also do, except it's not on DMZ layer.
Got it.
Okay. Now you did mention in your answer MTLS. Help me understand what is MTLS, why you need MTLS.
So mutual MTLS stands for the mutual transport layer security. Here, any kind of integration which is happening in between the middleware and Salesforce, we want that trust to be established, and for that, the certificates will be exchanged, and every payload and for every integration, the request will be signed by the mutually authenticated certificates. Now, these certificates will be signed by using the private key, and on the other side, which was already exchanged, the public version of the certificate, the certificate will be validated. It happens on the both sides, whether Salesforce acts as the client or as a server, or the other way around. So that helps in doing a two-way handshaking and ensuring that the request is coming from the right source. Does this answer your question?
Is there any special port related requirement?
Yeah, MTLS supports 8443 port, um, which needs to be opened.
Okay. And give me an example in case of MuleSoft. Okay. MuleSoft will has a public key or private key and how the handshake would happen.
Sure. So, so Salesforce. All right, just give me 1 second. Just recollecting the process. Right. So Salesforce and MuleSoft, Salesforce would provide would create a, self-signed certificate, and that will be stored in the certificate and key management. The public version of the same certificate will be provided to MuleSoft. On the other side, MuleSoft will be producing a CS signed certificate whose private key MuleSoft will use to sign, and the public version will be provided to Salesforce. Um,
Are you
and
sure you just mentioned about self-signed and then you're mentioning about the CA sign in the MuleSoft side?
That's my understanding. The Salesforce supports both CA signed and self signed. However, they accept CA signed certificate from the third parties. Here,
Okay.
MuleSoft is a Salesforce product, so I would assume that that it will accept the any kind of signed certificate from MuleSoft. But if it's any third party, it will only take the CA signed.
Okay. I'm still not getting, so you are mentioning in single statement, tell me who will keep private key and who will use a public key.
Client will maintain the private key and server will use the public key.
So you are saying that private key is with MuleSoft and the public key is with Salesforce?
Depending upon from who is the originating system here. If Salesforce is client, then Salesforce will use the private key
So
and
in this
MuleSoft will use the public.
example, in this example, let's assume that Salesforce is server
All
and
right.
MuleSoft is coming to the Salesforce for the integration.
Okay. In that case, MuleSoft will use the private key and Salesforce will use the public key to decrypt the certificate.
Okay, I would recommend read the flow again, Bhaskar, right? Your most of answer is right, but read the flow carefully, especially the self sign and the CA sign. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Now coming back to
Even there.
again, like I said, I'm not asking any new question. You are giving
Yeah.
me breadcrumbs. Okay, I'm just following your breadcrumbs, right? That's exactly happened in CTA exam as well. Whatever you speak can be used against you.
Okay.
Now coming back
All
to
right.
this one. Can anybody in the org go and enable MTLS or there is any special way to handle MTLS enablement? So if you log into Salesforce right now, would you see the option for MTLS?
No, we need to request Salesforce to enable that first.
Good, good. So
Sorry, I was translating your question. I was just trying to get what exactly you're asking, trying to
yeah, that
ask.
is the reason I was not clear. And it is okay if you're not clear, feel free to ask judges, right? For the clarification. Don't
I
jump
was
answering question.
okay. I started thinking from the admin perspective that only administrator can do it or any of the users. So of course it is in the setup menu. So I was about to say like only admins can do it.
Okay. Uh, so we will go a little bit on OAuth side. Okay. Uh, Walk me through the social sign-on flow, how it would work.
Sure. So from the user experience perspective, you want to hear, or you want to hear from the backend perspective?
Both.
Okay. So from the user experience perspective, I'm considering that a mobile publisher application is being used, and we are leveraging the
You are making things extremely complicated. The moment you go with the mobile publisher, you would literally go on the layered OAuth flow. Let's keep things
yes.
simple. Let's go on
Okay.
social sign-on flow from browser.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So um, all right. So the so here we will be having three parties: the browser, the relying party, which will be Salesforce, and the OIDC provider, which is any of the social channel like Facebook or Twitter or Google.
Mhm.
The request will be initiated from the browser, and the user will try to access the protected resource at the relying party. Relying party will identify that the user is not logged in, and they will redirect the user. There is no active session basically, and the user will be redirected with a auth, and the user will be asked for an auth code, and will be redirected to the OIDC login page. If the user is not logged in the OIDC, the user will be doing the authentication and authorization, and an auth code will be generated and passed back to the browser. Browser will utilize this auth code and amalgamate it with the client ID and secret, state and scope, and will be sent back to Salesforce. That is a relying to the OIDC provider. And this content will be exchanged with an access token. Once the access token is received by a relying party, we will be running a registration handler inside Salesforce for the respective auth provider, and it will be having the create and update methods who will either create or update the user, and will create a third party account link to the customer, linked with the external user created inside Salesforce, and then the APIs will be open for consumption.
Okay, good. How would Salesforce know in the registration handler class that add method needs to be called or the update method needs to be called?
Correct. So once the access token is received, it also comes with the user ID, and having that user ID, Salesforce will identify whether the user is already existing inside Salesforce or not. And based upon
How?
that, it
How? Which method?
so Salesforce, or since once receiving the access token and the user ID, Salesforce already knows that who the user is. Salesforce is going to run a query on the Salesforce user object, and is going to
Sorry, how?
identify.
So let's say I'm first time. How would the Salesforce know that the phase? Let's take an example of the Facebook. Jitendra authorized Salesforce in the Facebook consent management. I provided all my consent and everything. Facebook went to the token endpoint URL of Salesforce. How would Salesforce know? Because Salesforce has hundreds of users and Facebook has millions of users. How would those two match?
Okay, I got your question now. So that they will utilize the email address onto which using which the Facebook user was created.
Okay. I am not satisfied with the answer. Okay. Uh, Very simple mechanism Salesforce internally uses, right? If third party link exists, so basically if something is coming from the sales Facebook have a unique user ID. If that unique user ID is found in any of the third party link record internally created, Salesforce uses update method. That means Salesforce did find the user. But if Salesforce did not find the user, add method gets called. That add method has a custom logic. Salesforce does not give you the logic. You need to decide how you will identify user either on the basis of device ID, user ID, or whatsoever. So update is extremely simple, right? No need to worry about update because third party link does exist. If the third party link does not exist, that's how Salesforce knows. Hey, there's no third party link for Jitendra for Facebook because there could be multiple social sign on Facebook and let's say LinkedIn. My third party exists for Facebook, but my third party does not exist with the LinkedIn and I use the LinkedIn right now. Okay,
Correct.
so that is extremely important. Related with extremely important record.
Yeah,
Okay.
I knew it, but I couldn't say that right. I was trying to query on the user object, but I think that makes sense to have
Yeah,
a quick
and
check on
also
the
you
CTA.
mentioned Salesforce internally will decide on the basis of email ID. No,
No,
the add user method is completely custom. Okay, it is up to the implementation partners, architects, developers, that how do they decide that which user in Facebook, LinkedIn is which user in Salesforce. Most probably, yes, they will use an email ID, right? But who knows what else someone wants to use. Okay.
correct.
Coming back to mobile publisher, walk me through the same flow in the mobile publisher.
Sure thing. So, mobile publisher, the user will access the mobile application and tap onto the mobile application. Considering that the user has not logged in before, the user will be redirected to the OIDC provider, and that's the first time user will provide its consent. The same flow will be utilized where the first the access token will be sorry first the auth code will be received, then will be exchanged with the access token. Once the access token will be returned, then and once the registration handle will run, again a next level of access token request will go to the relying party from the mobile publisher application, and that's the second time when the user will provide the consent on the mobile application, and then the user will be logged in. In this flow, I'm considering that the refresh token is not used, but the next time onwards, the refresh token will be used to generate a access token next time.
So you mentioned two times the consent needs to be provided, right?
Correct.
So in the layered OAuth flow, first consent is being asked by whom? By Salesforce or by social sign-on?
By social sign-on.
Okay.
And the second one is asked by Salesforce when, and that is the connected application. And that the second consent is basically to authentic to authorize the scope which Salesforce connected application is producing.
Okay. Good. Now in the social sign-on flow, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these providers, are they implementing OAuth 2 or they're implementing OIDC?
They are implementing OIDC. However, OIDC is the extended version of OAuth 2.0 only.
What
It
exactly
utilizes,
what exactly is the difference between both?
I don't know.
You need to know. You are right. OIDC is OAuth 2 extended version. What OIDC provides is really identity URL. So
Okay, right.
remember, you already answered in the previous question, right? That when the Facebook or LinkedIn is used, Facebook returns some information about the user, like their email
Correct.
address, maybe the date of birth or something, right?
Photo or
OAuth
anything.
2
Yeah.
would not do that. Okay, it's really the token
Okay.
URL, the more information about the user, and there are some more difference, but that is the key one, and that is the reason third party link is getting created, because now you have some more information other than OAuth. Okay, so help me. So we are, as we are already on identity URL, sorry, identity topic. Help me understand what is JWT flow and why would someone use JWT flow?
Short flow or JSON web token flow is used for a server to server integration, and it is recommended when there is no user authentication required. Does this answer your second part?
No
Why would
user, no user authentication. I didn't come back again.
right? So it doesn't require. Sorry, Jot flow doesn't require any user interaction. It is
Oh,
a server to server flow.
server to server flow. And why would someone need server to server flow? Why can't you use a web server flow or something?
In order to use web server flow or any other flow, it will require a human intervention where a user need to authenticate. However, in Jot flow, there's no user intervention needed, and and the Jot assertion can act and represent a user by utilizing the named credentials, which is set inside Salesforce.
Do you know anything about the SAML bearer flow?
Yes, we do. Yes, I do.
SAML bearer flow also does not need any user interaction, isn't?
That is right. So SAML bearer is a good candidate where JOT web tokens are not accepted by any of the parties, but they want to use a SAML bearer. SAML bearer flow can be leveraged in between server to server integration.
What is the problem? So if I don't want, even let's say my server supports both JWT and SAML bearer both, right? What is the advantage, disadvantage of using one versus another?
I'm not very much sure, but I will give my best try. So in JOT flow, it is considered as very much lightweight, which is optimized for the mobile applications. And um, sorry, sorry, my bad. I was mid-directed. JOT flow, it is considered as one of the most secured flow. Uh, because of the mechanism it supports. It's yeah,
See, here's a hint, right? Anything that you speak can be taken against you. So if you're talking about JWT is the most secure by the mechanism, talk me about that mechanism. I can ask you as a judge, what do you mean by mechanism?
right. So so JOT flow is basically the JOT payload is made up of three parts. The first part is the header, which contains the hashing the algorithm for the encryption. That is the RSA SHA-256, which is encoded into base 64 format. Then it is supplemented by a period, and then suffixed by a period, and then we will be having the JOT claim. The JOT claim, we will be having the subject, audience, expiration time, and the token, the type as JOT bearer, and it is also encoded into base 64, and then it is signed by a X509 type of certificate that is again suffixed by a period.
But still, I'm not getting right. Why JWT and why the SAML bearer?
I don't know the
That's okay. It's okay to say you would like to pass the question. Don't waste time. Okay.
okay, yeah,
Okay. So do some investigation, right? And if you want, yeah, we can connect after this, right? And I can share my point of view. Okay. One important thing to know is almost every OAuth flow needs connected app except one. Okay. So you really need to say, hey, in order to use an OAuth, we need a connected app. Okay. You did not mention a social sign-on. You did not mention here in JWT also. It's a very simple thing. Okay.
yeah.
Judges might ignore, but again, at the same time, it's a very important step.
Why to lose the mark if I know something, right? So I should mention it.
Yeah. But again, like I said, information density, don't waste time on unnecessary thing, right? You short answer, sweet answer with the full information. Yeah. That is an art you need to study. Okay. I think I am done with all the major basic workflows. I will ask you one question. Okay. Do you know what is a canvas? Explain me the canvas integration pattern. When would you use that integration?
Canvas integration pattern is used to virtualize the data inside Salesforce, especially if the application is, say, a web application. That is a mandatory thing, and if that application can be accessed using HTTPS, Canvas flow will be utilized. There are two major mechanisms a Canvas application can be called or virtualized inside Salesforce. One is utilizing the signed request, and the other pattern is the utilizing the auth 2.0 flow. The recommended option for a seamless experience is the signed request, where the signed request is sent with the user context information, and a user will be directly logged in into the third-party application from within Salesforce.
So let's assume a scenario that I have a web-based application, LMS, cloud-based LMS system, and walk me through the process. I want to bring my training related information, okay, and I want to access it from Salesforce. What is the step gonna happen? So as an end user, what would I click in Salesforce and how the whole um, process would
Right.
work?
Sure. So from the user experience perspective, there are certain places where the canvas component can be placed. It could be one of the most common option is to put into a into a into a chatter component, into a chatter tab, where the user can click and the Canvas app will be launched within. The other option is a Lightning Web component. However, that utilizes the Visual Force page. So we can put into a Visual Force page basically. Um, yeah, these are the two. We can
So
also
what
put
would
it into.
happen? So if I go on the, let's say, tab, I click on that tab. Help me
Right.
understand what happens after that.
Right. As soon as you click on the tab, the canvas page will try to load, and in that case, it will pass the user's contact who is logged in. Now, when doing the initial setup for the Canvas application, we create a connected app in Salesforce, and where we can have settings like whether the admin approved users are pre-authorized. So in this case, considering that the user is pre-authorized, it means that the user is already having the rights to send the context to the Canvas application, and the user will not be thrown any error. The user's context information will be passed, like the user ID, the access token, etc., in the same claim. That will be parsed by the Canvas application, and the user will be granted the access after the trust is being established.
You did not mention about user authentication. You did mention about OAuth, but how the user would be authenticated in Canvas? Okay, tell me the difference between user authentication, user authorization. What is the difference between both?
User authentication basically means that the user is authenticating their identity. So that may involve the username and password, and the user's ID is identified. User's authorization is basically authorizing for a certain set of data fields or objects, basically a scope where they authorize um, to get the access to.
Okay. Okay, good. So considering what you just answered in Canvas application, help me understand how the user authentication would happen.
Yeah, I okay. So if the user is trying to do the login very first time, they will the user is expected to be created inside Canvas application. Since the user is the admin approved users are pre-authorized, there's a setting we have set in the Canvas app. User will be asked for putting in the username and password for the very first time, and for the LMS system. Um,
So
yeah,
at
that's
that
how they will
username and
authenticate.
password, is that the capability of Canvas GD SDK, or that is the capability of LMS system?
I am not sure. I need to read that.
Okay. Yeah, let's discuss, right? I can explain you how that happens. Okay.
That will help. Thanks.
Yeah. Another question, right, related, right, so that we can close the Canvas integration topic is, yes, using profile, uh, you can control that who access Canvas application, but let's assume that within an LMS, there are some records I don't want anybody to access. Can you handle it using Canvas integration? Can you add some kind of the security layer other than OAuth and restrict user on something?
All right. So that is something that Salesforce doesn't offer out of the box. We need to handle that using the Canvas SDK. Whenever the HTML will be returned, we need to have the custom logic to filter that data and make the user see.
Do you know anything about Canvas lifecycle handler class?
Yes, I've heard of it, but I forgot it. I read it long back.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Canvas, Canvas itself sounds like a, is a big Salesforce, is a big um, section in the CTA. It's not a topic, but a section.
Yeah, but it's pretty simple, right? Once you do hands-on on Canvas, there are very few things that is supported. But anyway, we can talk after this.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, let's go a little bit more on integration side. I know that we did discuss few integrations here. What is the maximum size of the request and the response if Salesforce makes a call out to the external system?
That is basically the heap size, and that is 6 MB for a synchronous call.
Okay. And let's assume that MuleSoft is making a call out to the Salesforce, right? What is the maximum Salesforce can return?
If MuleSoft is making a call to sales, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
if MuleSoft is making a call to Salesforce, then it is utilizing the remote call-in pattern, right?
exactly. And what is the maximum size of Salesforce can respond?
That is again 6 MB.
Okay. Now Salesforce file supports 2 gigabytes of storage.
Correct.
Can MuleSoft or any ETL or ESB make a call to access the file which is larger than 6 MB?
No.
Then how during the data migration you will migrate 2 gigabytes of file in the content version?
So in order to migrate the file, size is like maybe 2 GB or greater than up to 2 GB. It utilizes the REST APIs and it uses the multi-part format. It breaks the file into smaller chunks. That is the ETL's capability, and move the file.
What is the meaning of multi-part?
Okay, so multi-part is nothing other than converting the file into base64 format, and then making the chunks of file in a sequential pattern, and not sending the file all together, but into chunks. If
Multi-part, is that you mean?
that's what my understanding is.
Read again. Your answer is right. REST API is used. There is a special API for the content version document, but that's not the definition of multi-part. Good try. Okay. Uh, okay. Sorry. Coming back to that same question, the reason I'm asking is now let's assume that as a part of the data migration, there are multiple historical files that you did not migrated. Help me understand. So let's say Siebel CRM to the Salesforce CRM. Siebel has millions of files, and each file is more than like on average 100 MB on average.
Okay.
How would you, and Salesforce file does not have that storage. Where
Okay.
would you migrate that data? That would be accessible from Salesforce.
Okay, in this case, since the data is required to be accessed from Salesforce, I would like to opt in a buy over build decision, and I would like to go for a third-party application which can help me managing the data. I would like to recommend Xfiles Pro, since we have spoken about the Active Directory and the organization is Microsoft compatible. So I assume that the SharePoint storage is available. So we will be migrating all the files inside Salesforce. A link will be created inside SharePoint, and the link will be created inside Salesforce, where the data will be virtualized utilizing the Lightning Web Component offered by the Xfiles Pro managed package.
Okay, so Xfile Pro is using the Lightning Web Component, right? Now, Lightning Web Component have the same governor limit of 6 MB. So how the Xfile Pro would be able to deliver 100 MB file if someone wants to
Correct.
see?
Correct. So Xfiles Pro basically do not fetch the entire data. It opens the file on the runtime basis. It is having the capability of utilizing the Google Previewer, and it only stores the reference to the file inside Salesforce. Once the user clicks onto that file, it let the user use the Google Previewer, and the file is opened directly from the SharePoint.
From the SharePoint, I didn't understand. So Xfile Pro and SharePoint, you will use both?
Yeah, Xfiles Pro is just a connector in between Salesforce and SharePoint.
Why Xfile Pro? Why not the File Connect if you have a SharePoint in the picture?
Because Files Connect is coming with the limitations of row level security, which we cannot provide. File Connect is better used when you have the more of read operation and no writing capabilities, and it also doesn't offer the folder kind of structure which Xfiles Pro and SharePoint does offer.
So you are saying that uh, File Connect does not support row level security for
It doesn't.
files?
Yeah.
So in sales, so forget about the Xfile Pro and the File Connect for a time being. Normal content version, how the security is maintained in
The
standard
security
out. Hmm.
The security is governed by the parent object, who against which the file is associated to. If the user is having the access to the parent record, they get the access to their test files.
But which object is important there?
Parent object.
Contain document link, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So File Connect also supports contained document link. So I am not able to understand what you mean by the role, because if the File Connect and the Salesforce file both uses contain document link, and only way you can see the file is using navigating to the parent record and then go to the related list,
Mhm.
how the File Connect would not work?
Right. So when I mentioned that it doesn't support row level security, I meant that we cannot set a specific set of profile of users to only see the files, and then another set of profile the users to only download the files. Same way, another set of users or the entire organization, or say my customer users, should not be able to download but can only view the file. So that
I
level of
think
flexibility is not
what
there.
you need to, yeah, Bhaskar, you need to polish this answer. Okay.
Okay.
I know where you are going. I can understand, but you need to polish. You are
Okay.
really talking more from the SharePoint side, right? Because that's where you're not talking really from the Salesforce point of view, right? More like on the, if someone has access to the SharePoint or something, right? Which Xfile Pro handles sync security, right? So just polish that answer, right? You really need to know why Xfile Pro is paid, File Connect is paid. Okay, I can ask you 10 more questions, right? Usability. Xfile Pro is replaces Salesforce file related list. Xfile Pro has its own
It
component
is
related list,
correct.
right? It's a very big decision saying that you are not going to use a file, Salesforce file, or if you are going to use Salesforce file and Xfile Pro both, then from the end user point of view, I would be very confused when to see on the file related list and when to see on the Xfile Pro related list. So you really need to have your mind set that how you are going to tell the story. Okay.
Yeah. Whenever I recommend the Salesforce whenever I recommend X Files Pro, I always replace the Salesforce files entirely. In our scenario, right, we do not want to use files anyways because we are out of limit, right? Hence, I recommended the file to be stored offline or
So
outside Salesforce
I will
platform.
say that is a very big decision. Web to case, email to case. There are many countless capabilities which uses Salesforce file internally.
I
How would you?
have I have taken all of that points because I come prepared with the X Files Pro. So
Exactly, exactly. So
yeah.
keep those things in mind, and if let's say
Yes.
judges goes in that direction, do not spend a lot of time. Okay.
Can I ask this question? Like probably I will just ask in the last maybe. But I want to understand like why to not use Salesforce Files Connect, right? Or no one. I have not seen it using, like no one is using it, and I know that what the drawbacks are. But is there any something which judges are keen to hear? Um,
We can talk right in detail, but the most important is file connect is mostly reading the data, not writing the data.
right.
Right. So, because when you have a file connect, right, and it's a per user basis or named one, right? If the file already exists in SharePoint, Dropbox, or Box or somewhere, right? You can create a content document link. But if you really need to upload the file, there is file connect does not support that. There are API customization, but again, to be honest, I'm not very big fan of Xfile Pro because it's a very risky solution. Why? Because if you talk, you're going to replace Salesforce file completely by some App Exchange product. There's so many countless capabilities of the Salesforce that you would be missing, like CPQ, billing, revenue cloud, B2B commerce, right? Think about it. Almost everywhere files are used.
Yeah, so
So
X Files Pro have, like they have got a solution, right? They allows us to do the folder sync capability. So whatever the email to case, like whatever is coming into Salesforce file from any kind of backend processes. So for example, say Conga, you are just clicking a button on Conga. Conga is generating a document. It is anyways always going to check into the Salesforce files, not going to use the X Files Pro component. So as soon as you enable that specific configuration, it automatically keep moving the files into the respective folder and keep
but
deleting
that
from
is not
Salesforce in the
real
backend.
time. That is not real time. That is near real time.
It is near real time.
I think there is a delay of 15 minutes or 30 minutes, right? So
Yeah. There is another product, S Drive, if you have heard about it. They utilize Amazon S3. That is also something which I have studied well. And like, if is there any a deviation towards any of the product, you can help me recommending, especially in the CTA scenarios, I will probably go with that.
Yeah, yeah. I can share my point of view, right? But everybody have their own style, right? So yeah, we can discuss. But yeah, do not agree with what I'm saying, right? You have to agree to yourself. Okay.
Correct.
Let's go little little bit on the reporting side. I
Mhm.
think we still, so what we can do is we can wrap in 10 minutes and then remaining 20-25 minutes, yeah, I can help you
Mhm.
with some of the question that I ask.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
CRM analytics. Okay. Uh, what are some of the limitations? I know that we know that what it does, right? What are some of the limitations of the CRM analytics?
My understanding is like when you are having a lot of limits, then you use CRM analytics.
Okay, let me give you some more idea. Let's talk about security and CRM analytics.
Right. Sure thing. So, in order to drive the row level security, especially in CRM analytics, it offers two options. One is the inherited sharing model. So it only replicates whatever the sharing model user is following inside Salesforce, same gets replicated inside CRM analytics. The second one is the security predicates, which where we can define that which user can access what level of data.
Now, inherited security, does every object supports? What is the limit on even on that side? How many objects supports inherited security?
To me, all the standard and custom objects support inherited security.
Okay, security, check that one. Okay. Now,
Okay.
security predicate, give me example how the security predicate is enabled. Or how would you say that a record in CRM analytics, Bhaskar should be able to see or not?
All right. So once a data flow is prepared, inside the data flow, the security predicate, first of all, in order to implement it, it goes via programming. So in the programming, we need to mention the user's role, and I forgot it. Actually, I used it very long back, but I forgot that
Is
how
it
it.
only user role can you select or what can you select? That's the question.
Mm, it only supports role. That's my understanding is.
Any, so on the row of that data, any column, if you can relate with the any field on the user, that's how the security predicate works. That's simple. So the, let's say account state, if account state is equals to user state, then show simple. You get the user global
Okay.
variable there. Now from the user global variable, you choose whatever you want to. It's as simple as that.
Okay. So basically, like in order to implement, we can have custom fields created on the user object and then make it visible for any data. Okay.
It's pretty flexible.
Okay.
Inherited security, yeah, there are some limits on the inherited security, how many rows, etc., can be created. Just check on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's so till this point, right? We did a very objective kind of very. We know that this is exact going to be solution. That's a little bit more like subjective. Okay, I would like to hear your point of view here. So let's say there is a car racing company, okay, and they have different products uh, that they sell with the car add-on. I'm not talking about the nuts and bolts of the car, right? Complete car, different models of the car, and then there is a package like towing capacity, tracks, all those stuff, right? A memory seat, those kind of stuff. And it's a B2B scenario. So this car company sells car to mostly the dealers in bulk. Okay. And they are working in a multiple countries. Okay, it's a global implementation. They want to streamline the package and selling of that car products. So question, would you suggest CPQ? Yes or no or why? Give me the justification here.
So I would not recommend a CPQ here, and I would go with the standard Salesforce solution. Why? Because in this scenario, we do not have any complex discounting rules or any kind of complex product hierarchy. The hierarchy which is mentioned, my understanding is easily manageable using the product families and the product hierarchy inside Salesforce. Um, and the smaller parts like nuts, bolts, etc., can be managed with a product, say miscellaneous type of products. So we also do not have any specific, uh, yeah, I think I mentioned the no complex discounting mechanism, no complex product hierarchy,
Okay.
hence Salesforce.
But there is a requirement, let's say for the product bundling, like I say, the car, almost each car comes in 4 or 5 model, and then each model will have some add-on. How would you handle this capability out of the box?
Right. So each car and the each add-on to that for against that car will be modeled as a product, and we will be having a dedicated price book entry for that product for that line item level, and that will be added as opportunity line items and quote line items.
So I'm a dealer. Okay,
Mhm.
I have a partner community enabled. I go on the partner community and let's take an example that okay, I want a minivan. Okay, I so how would the process would help me that if I add a minivan, all the add-on related product would auto. So minivan base model is something, another model is something, and then the packages contain some other product, right? How would you help me that I configure all the products properly? I'm not mixing the minivan product with the sedan or SUV product. How would that work?
There are a couple of options I can think of here. So I'm just trying to understand the question first, right? So in this scenario, right? So this minivan, you have got a product which you have added, right? So what other products would you like to add? You are talking about the other packages which are only associated to
Bundling.
the
Bundling.
bundling.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. In that case, I would recommend a Lightning Web Component. It is going to be a custom solution against all that product. We will be maintaining the product number. We'll be having the custom fields created on the product, which will define that against what parent this product belongs to. And we'll be having an LWC who will fetch all the components and display on the UI.
Okay, good. Okay, going one step further, I want a capability to have a discounting at a customer level. So let's say if Honda dealer is selling, I want to give them 10% discount straight. Let's say I am OEM. Let's say I am a Honda. I have implemented Salesforce and all my dealers, they're separate dealers, right? And my preferred dealers should have a 10% discount, others should have 5% discount overall. How would you handle that scenario?
So for against all of my dealers, I would be having a separate price book. I will be maintaining this information at a price book level. Whenever that specific price will be applicable, I will be having a custom logic to apply that discount on save of the record.